Good evening. 1st of December is World AIDS Day. So, this is to uh, remember that AIDS, since the last 3 decades, or almost 4 decades now, has been a very difficult disease to handle. Of course, even today, we don't have a cure for it, but we definitely have crossed several hurdles to say that today, definitely the outcome of a HIV positive patient is not as that was 4 decades back. And I would appreciate that still the bit of social stigma which is associated with this disease be mm, I mean, from all quarters, not only from medical side, but socially, and it's high time that we come out of this stigma. And this day is probably to commemorate on that. Now, today, I would say that whatever I'm going to tell today, in short, is about the fact that HIV/AIDS has had a tremendous impact in neurology because Neuro AIDS is a separate chapter of it. And right from the right from the time that the patient gets HIV positive, the neurological problems may start. In fact, the stage of seroconversion, the first stage where the patient gets converted into HIV positive, can herald with a neurological problem. So, in Neuro AIDS, let us say that it involves the central nervous system, which is the brain, the spinal cord, and the coverings of the brain and spinal cord, which are the meninges. Then the peripheral nervous system, which are the peripheral nerves and muscles. So, the entire neurological axis may get affected by HIV, either directly or through other mechanisms which I am coming to. So, to start with, at the initial point, the patient may have features of meningitis, or patient may have features of something which is known as Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a bit different from the normal Guillain-Barré syndrome in HIV seroconversion state. Then, of course, with the gradual, there is a phase in this disease where a patient after seroconversion has a long time where the patient remains HIV positive and may have some of the other diseases. So during this period, HIV virus can directly involve the neuroaxis and can cause disorders in the brain. For example, AIDS dementia complex, which has been in past a significant disease, but not now because of the treatment part. This is more associated with AIDS, but rather than the asymptomatic phase. In the asymptomatic phase, the patient can run very sort of diseases which mimics like other diseases. For example, migrainous pain, headaches. For example, a bit of hypersensitivity to certain drugs in neurology. And then the patient may have, if the patient goes into AIDS, there is a phase, there is a span from where HIV positive, uh, asymptomatic HIV positive state, with the advent of the invasion of the HIV virus in the system, can go into AIDS. And AIDS is a defining illness, which is defined by several factors. For example, the CD4 count, then certain diseases which herald that the patient has gone into AIDS. Now, this phase, that is a phase from seroconversion to a phase of AIDS, this has increased significantly by virtue of the highly active antiretroviral treatment on the heart in over the last 20-30 years, which has been radically revamped through several mechanisms. For example, the advent of several uh, recent drugs. So when the patient goes into AIDS, the patient can have significant problems, significant diseases of the central nervous system or the peripheral nervous system. So direct involvement of the spinal cord is known, and that causes a condition which is known as HIV. Sorry, the myelopathy, which is related to HIV virus, direct involvement of the HIV virus in the spine. And the patient may have difficulty in walking or as such complete paralysis of the lower limbs or of all the four limbs with involvement of the bladder and the bowel. So vacuolar myelopathy is the term, specific term, which comes with HIV, direct involvement of the spinal cord. So similarly, HIV direct involvement of the tissues of the cells of the brain can cause AIDS dementia. So that's about the central nervous system. And in the peripheral nervous system, the patient can have direct involvement of the HIV virus with the peripheral nerves, causing severe painful neuropathy. Just like that, myopathy is also known. Another way in which HIV affects in general, as well as specifically in neurology, is through suppressing the immunity of the patient and making the patient liable to other infections. For example, fungal infections, viral infections, bacterial infections, parasitic infections, which can all be a little unusual. For example, viral infections, for example, herpes zoster, this can involve multiple dermatomes instead of one particular dermatome with multiple involvement bilateral, which is unusual in a normal herpes patient. So whenever such things come, a doctor must be aware that this kind of and especially taking the history of the patient, this has to be sought for. Then the third way in which the patient can get affected is by the highly at the heart or the treatment part. So there are certain drugs which can cause severe neuropathy in patients of AIDS. And these are known, like for example, initially when zidovudine was in use, which was the first initial drug for HIV. Now, of course, it has been changed in all the regimens, but most of those drugs had this side effect of neuropathy. So all said and done, a proper history, a history of the occupation of the patient, history of any transfusion, history of any IV injections or IV drug use, these are sought for, and of course, a definite entity of a definite. One doctor has to be skeptical about the thing that this patient may have an underlying HIV infection. So serology is sought for in any preoperative condition right now. So whatever it is, all said and done, it is the basic idea is that the doctor must be aware of the fact that certain unusual presentations in neurology must click this idea that the serology of the patient should be known. I mean, the HIV status of the patient should be known. And if it comes out to be positive, to grade the patient in which stage the patient is. Is he in the stage of seroconversion? Is he in the stage of asymptomatic HIV infection? Or is he in the stage of AIDS? And if so, then what is the type of involvement? Is it central nervous system? Is it peripheral? Is it directly because of HIV? Is it related to opportunistic infections? Or, for example, certain malignancies, certain tumors in the brain, like for example, primary CNS lymphomas. These are typical of AIDS patients. Don't happen usually. That, for example, certain other infections, like JC virus infection of the brain, causing progressively multifocal leukoencephalopathy and diseases like that. So these are related to the immunosuppressed conditions. And then, of course, one has to remember that these patients should get a proper treatment of the heart. Now it's available in all governmental setups also, as well as privately. And most importantly, as to remember and commemorate this date, I would again encourage each and everyone in each and every level of the society to appreciate the fact that a particular disease, not just HIV, a particular disease should not be associated with any kind of stigma, be it leprosy, be it AIDS, be it epilepsy, be it anything. The disease can happen with any person, any point of time. And there are several ways in which the person can get HIV infected. So it is not necessary to know which was the way. The patient is HIV positive. So get the patient stratified into the stage of the disease he is in, the type of involvement of the neuro axis, and of course the treatment which he is getting. And following up the patient, which I can ensure that for all positive people, life is not that bad as it was 40 years back. But down the line it will be better, I hope so. And right now, at least the patients can live 2 decades, 3 decades, or more than that. I have patients who have been surviving since the last 20-25 years and almost asymptomatically. So it is not a point that getting HIV means end of life. No. Patients definitely, after having this infection, can survive, can have a fruitful life, so they need not be taken out of their services. They must be given a scope to live with the common society. So I wish you all the best, and I hope from today onwards, we'll have a different angle of thinking and accepting HIV positive patients in the society. Thank you very much.